What if the next big AI shift in retail is not some flashy robot store, but a bunch of quiet tools that make ordinary retail work faster, cheaper, and a lot smarter?
That is such a good setup because most people hear frontier AI and picture science lab stuff, not product listings or call centers.
Exactly. This discussion is built around a document called What Microsoft Foundry Labs Could Mean for the Future of Retail. Its whole point is pretty disciplined. Most of the Foundry Labs catalog is not really for retail, and that is fine. The useful question is which models already fit real retail problems? And by the end, that changes the picture. Instead of thinking retail AI is mostly hype or generic chatbots, you start seeing a stack of building blocks: imagery, voice, transcription, search, optimization, browser automation, model routing, even 3D product views.
So, not can AI reinvent retail from scratch? More, where does it actually remove pain that retailers already live with every day?
Yes, and here is where it gets personal for any retailer or brand. If you hand everything to packaged software, you can lose the small things that make you different. Pricing logic, merchandising choices, fulfillment quirks, the way you talk to customers. That is often the brand.
And that leads to something even more surprising. If most teams cannot train giant models themselves, how do they keep control without getting stuck?
The answer here is not isolation. The document argues that retailers who like building in-house can still borrow strength. Foundry Labs gives them research-grade components instead of sealed products. So the heavy model work is already done, but the retailer still owns the app, the data, the experience, and the decisions about how it all fits together. That is the key shift.
Right, because the fear is usually if I buy the tool, I buy everyone else's version of my business too.
Exactly. And there is a second piece. The Microsoft for Startups Pegasus program is described as a vetted way to connect enterprises with enterprise-ready startups, including retail-focused ones. So a retailer might pull in a startup that is great at demand forecasting, or visual search, or fulfillment optimization.
Without handing over the whole store.
Exactly. Startups bring applied expertise on narrow problems. Foundry Labs brings the underlying model capability. The retailer's engineers stay in charge. What this really means is that custom AI becomes more realistic without pretending every retail team is going to build a frontier model from zero.
So, what happens when that build it yourself mindset hits something very visible like product photography? Because that is one of those costs people forget. A new product is not just a product, it is a shoot, lighting, edits, campaign versions, seasonal versions, marketplace versions. It adds up fast.
And that is where MAI Image 2.5 comes in. The big retail use is identity preservation. You can take an existing product shot and restyle it into a summer scene, a holiday banner, or a cleaner studio look while keeping the item itself recognizable and true.
That sounds like the difference between reshooting the same handbag 3 times and getting 3 useful versions from one strong image.
That is basically it. Add style control and suddenly a giant catalog can look more consistent, even when imagery originally came from lots of suppliers. And the improved text rendering matters too, because now labels, price flags, or promotional text in the image have a better chance of being readable.
Which is one of those details customers notice instantly if it looks off.
Now, remember that assumption we started with, that retail AI is mostly chatbot hype? Here is where it starts breaking down. Some of the strongest use cases are not even text first. They are visual, audio, operational.
Speaking of audio, that part felt especially retail ready. MAI Voice 2 is about multilingual text-to-speech, zero-shot voice cloning from a short reference clip, and emotion control. For retail, the obvious use is a consistent brand voice across app narration, phone menus, in-store announcements, maybe even drive-through ordering.
And that consistency is bigger than it sounds.
Yeah, because otherwise a brand can sound stitched together over time. Different voice actors, different languages, different tones. Here, one persona can carry across touch points, and localization gets easier because you do not have to commission fresh recordings market by market.
And emotion control gives it some situational sense. More reassuring for a complaint, warmer for a successful order confirmation. That is not a small thing when trust is being built through audio. But here is the question I kept coming back to. How much insight is hiding in customer conversations that companies already have and mostly never use?
Probably a huge amount.
That is why the transcription section is one of the strongest in the whole piece. MAI Transcribe 1.5 is fast enough to transcribe an hour of audio in under 10 seconds, and it supports content biasing. That means it can learn brand terms, product names, SKU numbers, all the retail vocabulary generic systems tend to mangle.
Okay, this next part is a bit technical, but stick with me because it is worth it. If a system mishears a product code, the whole call can become basically useless as searchable text. Picture replaying a noisy customer service call where one wrong model numbers changes the meaning of the whole complaint. Now give the system the right brand vocabulary and separate the speakers clearly. Suddenly you know what the customer asked, what the staff member answered, and where things got stuck.
That is exactly what happens here, especially once Vibe Voice ASR enters the picture. It can handle up to 60 minutes in one pass and identify who said what and when across more than 50 languages. So in plain English, what that means is customer calls stop being dead recordings and start becoming operational intelligence.
That is the aha moment. Once the words are accurate and attributed, you can study hesitation, repeated questions, weak staff responses, all of it. And then the document pivots to a type of work that is less glamorous but very real. Endless clicking through browser windows.
Yes, competitor price checks, listing updates across marketplaces, verifying promotions display correctly, collecting availability data. FARA 1.5 is a family of small computer use models designed for browser automation, and the small size is the point. Retail has too much volume for an expensive giant agent doing every task. You want lots of affordable agents.
Right, because the value is not one dramatic demo, it is getting rid of the steady drip of manual web work that quietly eats hours every week.
Exactly. One agent checks marketplace listings, another flags stale images or descriptions, another handles repetitive catalog updates. Parallel work becomes feasible because the model is small enough to run cost effectively. And that leads to something customers feel directly: search.
Search is one of those make or break moments. If the shopper cannot find it, the session is basically over. The model here is Harrier OSS version 1, a multilingual text embedding family covering 94 languages. Embeddings can sound abstract, but think of keyword search as trying to identify a song only if someone recites the exact lyrics. Semantic search is more like someone humming the tune and still getting the right song.
Nice.
That is exactly why a shopper asking for a warm, waterproof coat for winter hikes can still get the right results, even if those exact words are nowhere in the listing. The system is matching meaning, not just literal overlap.
And the deeper implication is huge. Good retail search is less about perfect phrasing and more about understanding intent. Add multilingual support and one catalog can serve many markets without separate search systems for each language.
Plus, the size range matters. If you are embedding millions of products, cost versus quality is not a side note. It is the deployment question.
Then we get to another quiet but important shift: optimization. Inventory allocation, markdowns, staffing, delivery routes, pricing against demand. Retail is full of optimization problems, but the bottleneck is often translating messy business language into something a solver can actually use.
Which sounds simple until you try it.
Exactly. Optimind is a small language model trained to turn plain language business problems into optimization formulations, with expert-aligned data and self-checks built in.
So imagine a category manager saying, we need to clear stock in this time window, protect margin above this floor, and move the right units. Normally, that might stay trapped in a meeting. Here, it gets translated into the kind of structure an optimizer can compute.
Yes, and that is the real change. The innovation is not just the math. It is shrinking the gap between business intuition and executable decision models.
Which means the people closest to the problem may actually be able to frame the solution. Then there is the issue nobody wants to discover after launch: AI bills.
Exactly. Model Router handles that by choosing which underlying model should answer a given prompt in real time. The document says it supports 18 models across several providers with cost, balanced, and quality routing modes. Think of it like a retail floor manager deciding who should handle which customer. A simple sizing question goes to the quick helper. A complicated return dispute goes to the most experienced associate. You do not send every shopper to the highest paid specialist.
And the insight there is clear. Efficient AI is not about always using the biggest model. It is about matching capability to difficulty.
Right, and the document adds failover and prompt caching. So the benefit is not just cost control, but also reduced risk as AI spreads across more parts of the business. One more customer-facing piece really stands out, and it gets at a problem every online retailer knows. Flat images are often not enough.
Especially for furniture, home goods, shoes, accessories. People are trying to judge size, shape, fit, texture, all through a screen. Trellis is the answer here. It generates high-quality 3D assets from a single image or a text description, including meshes and other 3D representations. The retail promise is turning existing imagery into interactive product views or even augmented reality placement.
So instead of commissioning custom 3D modeling for every item, a retailer could create a rotatable, inspectable model from what it already has. And this is why you should care, even if you do not work in retail. Better product understanding can mean fewer returns, less disappointment, and more confidence before purchase.
Which brings us to the tone of the whole piece. It is optimistic, but not breathless.
Exactly. The closing argument is a measured one. These 8 models matter because they make existing retail tasks better, producing imagery, handling audio, analyzing conversations, automating browser work, improving search, optimizing decisions, controlling model spend, and presenting products more immersively. None of that requires inventing a brand new retail business. And that is actually a really strong signal that the tools are useful rather than merely impressive.
And the warning is just as important. Most frontier research is not built with retail in mind, so retailers should resist bending every shiny new model into a store problem it was never meant to solve.
Right. The best opportunities are where the problem was already sitting there, waiting for a tool good enough to help.
So we started with the common assumption that retail AI is mostly hype, and we end somewhere much more grounded. It looks a lot more like a practical toolkit.
A toolkit for teams that want control, too. Build with strong components, borrow startup expertise where it helps, and stay selective. That is really the strategy running through the whole discussion.
And maybe that is the open question worth leaving people with. When a new model shows up, is it solving a real retail problem, or is the business stretching to justify the model?
If this overview did its job, that question should feel easier to answer. Thanks for spending time with us.